Welcome back. In this segment, we are going to lay in some very quick darks and lights. What we're going to be doing is we're basically going to be building the illusion of volume in a two-dimensional space. And we're going to start off with the skin tones. So I'm going to hide some of the other layers here so we just see the skin tones. And I'm going to pick up this color with my eyedropper. And I'm going to make my brush a bit smaller. Let's start with about like that. And what I want to do is I want to lay in the shadows first. So I'm going to tell my brush, I'm going to give it some specific behaviors. I'm going to tell it to multiply, which as we learned earlier was adding pixels together. And I'm going to change the opacity to about 10%. And what that is going to do is make sure that I'm on the skin layer. When I paint now, I'm going to be adding pixel values together. So I'm going to be painting darkness, more or less. And right now I'm going to be working monochrome. I'm not going to be adding any additional colors to the skin tone. That'll come much later in the process. And I'm going to build up the form here, bit by bit. And just working in shadows at the moment, and we'll do highlights shortly afterwards. You might notice that each application of my brush stroke is not obscuring the brush strokes beneath it, but more adding to it. Like I said, we're using the multiply mode. You might also notice that every time I'm using my brush, I'm not using the full size. And that is because I'm using a pressure-sensitive tablet here with a pen, and depending on how much pressure I put on the pen gives me varying stroke width. So if I put very light pressure, I'm giving a very light, actually let me go ahead and make that 100% opacity so you can see that a little more clearly. A very light stroke gives me very small, or very light pressure gives me a very light stroke, a very narrow stroke. And as I increase the pressure, I get higher and higher, or wider and wider strokes. So this gives me the ability to do the equivalent of what you could do with a brush, and it takes a lot of practice to get a good brush stroke down. But that is the essence of digital painting. If you are going to do any digital painting, a pressure-sensitive tablet is pretty much required. So let's go back here and get rid of these extra strokes that I don't need. And rather than do the whole painting, let's not end yet. Let's add in some of our highlights. So we're going to go up to here. We're going to choose now screen, which is the opposite of darkness, and this is going to subtract pixel values. And again, I don't want to use 100% opacity because that would be extremely dramatic and more than I need. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change this back to 10% so that I can build slowly. Right? Now I could be using a much softer edged brush here, but since I am just laying down major areas of color, I'm not too concerned about making the edges soft. And what I'm doing now is this is going to be where the main light is coming from, so I'm going to make this side of the head dark. And I'm treating all the surfaces more or less like spheres at this moment, with a highlight area and then a shadow area down here. And areas that protrude and catch light, the bulbous area of a sphere, those would get highlight values. So we're going to have a little bit here on the lower lip. I'm going to make that just a little smaller. And the astas don't have much lip to speak of, so I'm not going to worry too much about modeling them in any great detail at this point. So let's go ahead, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to end this section of the tutorial here while I duplicate what I've done here on the hands and on the different areas of clothing. And when we come back, you'll see the effect of all of that.